I'm Molly Lipset, and I'm a technical education developer here at Looker. And I'm here today to bring you the top 10 tips and tricks from DCL. And let's just talk about DCL for a moment. DCL is the Department of Customer Love, and we call ourselves that mostly because of our mission, which is to help customers become great at Looker, but also to help Looker be great for customers. We're here to teach you how to use all the functionality and tools of Looker, but also to hear about all your use cases and make sure that Looker is doing what it needs to make your workday the best it can be. I'm going to split up these tips and tricks into the different users of Looker. Those are the explorers and the developers, and then there are tricks that I think that everybody who uses Looker can use. You're going to see a theme in these tips and tricks, which is that there are a ton of tools and functionalities in Looker, and sometimes users find out about one tool and start using it to build out their entire instance. And so I'm here to introduce you to some of those other tools that you can use to make that work even easier and more efficient. So thinking about all the tools in Looker, if you think about Looker as if it was a construction field and you're getting ready to build a house, and there are just a ton of tools spread out all over this construction yard, and the first one you find is creating a look and making it into a dashboard. And then you think to yourself, okay, I have this tool. I'm going to use this tool to build out my entire instance and get all the dashboards, all my looks that I care about onto one dashboard. So that sounds really great in theory, but that's kind of like finding a hammer and using it to build your entire house. And the thing is, as soon as you get a hurricane, your house is going down. So instead of using just that one tool to build out your story, consider using some of the other tools that Looker has to offer. For instance, boards. Boards allow you to link your content and curate it in a certain way so that not all of it is in one place, but it still tells your data story. You'll notice sometimes when you're creating dashboards that you'll see a warning pop up that says loading times on dashboards with more than 25 tiles will be impacted. So that's not a hard and fast rule. That 25 is not like if you make 26 tiles on your dashboard, everything is going to burn. It's more like a suggestion of this is the amount of data that makes sense for one person to look at one time, and also for one instance to query at one time. So your instance and your brain are doing work to try to comprehend everything that's on the screen. Make them do less work and everyone will win. The second tool that you're going to see in that construction yard that's going to look real appealing is auto refresh. Auto refresh allows you to set a frequency to allow your dashboard to auto refresh the data. And it's really tempting to set that to be a really small interval because you say, oh, I want my data to be really fresh all the time. But if your data in your database is only refreshing at a say 1 day interval, it absolutely makes no sense to have your dashboard refreshing more often. You want to match your auto refresh frequency on your dashboard to your ETL policy because then you're not making Looker do any extra work to make your data as fresh as possible. So by setting up your auto refresh schedule to refresh after your database refreshes, you're making sure that you do the least amount of work to get the freshest data. So the next tool that you're going to find on your construction yard is the ability to download and schedule data from Looker. And this is another tool where you're going to say, this is amazing. I'm going to use this for everything and get all my data out of Looker and into my email. So that's a great idea. However, I bet you all the users on your instance are going to say the same thing. And that means that you're going to have a bunch of people concurrently downloading and scheduling data. And that's going to affect the global Looker performance. It is. So when you're thinking about downloading all your results, think about whether or not you're using the right tool. If you need more than 500 results, which is what shows on the Explore table, then maybe download them directly from your database. It's the same data. Looker's just running that query on your database. If you're wanting to schedule data, the tendency is to schedule it at Monday at 9 a.m. because that's when you're going to want to read it, right? But the thing is that everyone wants their data at Monday at 9 a.m. And if you're all scheduling at the same time, it's going to be slow. So instead, think about when your data is going to be fresh and scheduling it then. If your database refreshes at midnight, then why not schedule your database at 12:15 and it'll be just as fresh on Monday morning, but you won't be impacted by all the other people trying to schedule data at 9 a.m. So those are my tips for explorers, and now I'm going to dive into some tips for developers. And these are for those of you who are really looking into building your model, making sure that your queries are as optimized as possible, and troubleshooting all the outliers that come up in your data model. So the first thing that you're going to consider as a developer is that base level, building your model. And the thing that you need to fundamentally understanding about doing this is that when you build quick queries on your database, those queries are going to be quick in Looker. because Looker is just running queries directly on your database. So if we build really messy queries in Looker, they're going to be slow, just like they would be on your database. So some considerations here, and there's a good amount here. So this is the meaty slide. Get ready. The first thing we're going to talk about is building your model and tools to use to make this faster and more efficient. We have this tool called SQL Runner you're probably familiar with, but there's something that a lot of people don't know, which is that if you type the word explain in front of a query in SQL Runner, that's going to give you the query execution plan. It's going to show you where you can optimize your joins, and that's going to allow you to compose your explorers and determine your indexes to make your whole model faster. Next, when you're choosing your persistence in your model, you want to think about which of the queries that people need that are really, really slow. Those you can convert into PDTs, persistent derived tables, and then those views are pre-joined prior to runtime, making that query much faster. You can also match your caching policies to sync with your ETL timing wherever possible. That's kind of similar to using auto refresh, where it's like you don't need to refresh your data all the time if it's not changing. Finally, I'm going to talk about these system activity dashboards a lot because they're one of my favorite tools in Looker. And one that I can highlight here is for troubleshooting outliers. We can use the system activity database performance dashboard, and that has really amazing tiles that just expose our expensive queries without us doing any work. Additionally, if you find that you have a lot of expensive queries and want to do some more work optimizing them, there are optimization blocks that are just available for install in the marketplace. They're pretty much plug and play, and you can see where your slowdowns are happening in your database. My next tip for developers as you're creating your projects is you want to make them fresh and dry. So fresh and so dry, and Outcast really missed out on that reference. The first thing I can suggest there is to selectively include. You know that when you create a model from a schema, when you automatically generate it, you're going to have include all view. And that's the default so that all of the files that you're including in your model will be automatically included. But it's kind of a quick and dirty choice because including all the views means that every single one of those views needs to be compiled to build your model. So instead, you might consider using naming conventions or folders to include only a subset of your views where you need them, and that's going to be cleaner in the long run. Additionally, there's a tool called Project Import, and it's really great because it allows you to write dry code, which is don't repeat yourself. Local Project Import basically allows you to just take a project that you already have and pull it right into your LookML. It allows you to save time. You don't have to write the code. You can just copy and paste, basically, because the best developers are lazy developers. They're not redoing work that's already been done. You can also remotely import projects from an existing repository. My last tip is to do some spring cleaning, and I'm going to talk about those system activity dashboards again. I warned you, they're my favorite. This one is the content activity dashboard that I want to highlight here because that one exposes unused explorers. And there's just a tile that says these are the explorers that your explorers are not using, and you can clean those up and make sure that your project is as relevant and as fresh as it can be. So my last tips for developers are about probably the sexiest tool that you're going to see out on that construction yard. It's going to really look cool, and that's table calculations, custom fields, and merge results. These are amazing tools to use to build ad hoc calculations on top of your Explorer, on top of your model, to build out new proofs of concept for what you can do, but they all are going to happen on the front end. It's not going to be using the power of your database, and so ultimately they're going to end up being slower. Additionally, with merge results, those are really, really useful as a proof of concept. If I was a data engineer and wanted to know which table joins I needed to create in my database, merge results would be the best tool that I could imagine because it gives your users access to the data and an ability to show how it would work if it was connected in your database. So use the merge results that your users are building to determine relationships that can be built into your database rather than using those merge results as a permanent solution. That's it for my tips, and next up are my tricks for everyone because I truly believe that everyone can and should learn Looker. So these tricks are not going to seem extra tricky. You might know about them already, but this is how I learn Looker and how all my colleagues learn Looker, and they're the best trick in my bag. So my first trick, training.looker.com. You might have come on chat support sometime and thought, oh gosh, these are experts. They've been using Looker forever. How am I ever going to become a Looker expert like them? The thing is, we all started with training.looker.com. Most of us didn't know Looker before we started doing chat support, and so this is how we learned. We're using the same exact tool as we offer to all of you. So training.looker.com Highly recommend. There's courses here for explorers, for developers, and this is a great place to get started with your learning. Next up, docs.looker.com. So some of you may have read technical documentation before, and it's a little bit dry. I've read quite a bit myself. I understand. But the thing is that I sometimes make a cup of tea on the weekends and go sit and read docs.looker.com. And I'm not kidding. They're really enjoyable. They'll walk you through examples. You'll find things that you never knew were possible in Looker. And I've just learned so much from enjoyably reading the docs in my downtime. Next up, we've got Discourse. And Discourse is our community forum for Looker. So if you're looking for a very specific use case or a very specific example of how to do something, or you just want to get advice from other users of Looker about how they might approach something, Discourse is a really, really great place. That forum, it's categorized by topic. You can post things, you can find things that other people have posted and start a conversation with other users just like yourself. And finally, we have the Help Center, and that's at help.looker.com. And that's where we, the DCL experts, will post about specific use cases that we see all the time that we want to explain, or best practices. Some of the ones that I've mentioned here today, you can find on Help Center. And that's kind of the place where we'll put all of our sort of authoritative examples of how to do things in Looker. So those are my tips and tricks, and I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I look forward to speaking with you through chat and with Looker support. Thanks from the Looker Department of Customer Love.